Hello everyone, and welcome to a new video of mine. I'm your host Scourge, and today we'll be discussing the Lich King and how he might be a future threat for us someday. For warning, there may be spoiler talk in this video, so you have been warned. Alrighty then, hello again my friends, to a speculation video. I wanted to take this brief time to thank my currently 66 subscribers. You're all amazing people, and while it isn't some big number like 800,000, I still very much appreciate it. It helps me go forward in creating more content for you guys. I hope that we attract even more people someday, but for now this is just fine, and makes me happy. Enough with my thanking of you guys, though. You already know how awesome you are. Let's get into this video then. So I recently did the Death Knight Order Hall campaign and Mount Quest Chain, and it was among my favorites of the campaigns thus far. It was likely because of the involvement of Bolvar the Lich King. It was also very nice to see both old and new characters alike unite underneath the Ebon Blade to face the Legion, like Nazgrim. Gosh, I miss Nazgrim after his death in Siege. Anyways, back on the subject at hand. However, each time I did a quest, I noticed that this was building to something that could one day peak into a threat of its own. Yes, I am referring to the fact that Bolvar Fordragon, the current Lich King, and his Scourge could be a threat to us at some point. In the campaign, we are the Lich King's second hands, we're his champion. This goes against what the Ebon Blade once was. During Wrath of the Lich King, we too were the Lich King's servants. We did everything he asked of us, but in the end, we were but pawns in his grand scheme of things. All that we were meant to do was to draw out Tyrion Fordring out of hiding so that the Lich King could make him his truest of champions. But things didn't go according to plan. Tyrion was gifted the legendary blade, the Ashbringer, from Darien, who quickly swiped his weapon down at Arthas, causing him to flee. We were left to pick up our blades and raise them against Arthas, rather than for. The Knights of the Ebon Blade were born, and would secure their own undead to face off against the Scourge in Northrend. An interesting side note that I wanted to mention was
Your master knows what lies beneath the chapel. It is why he dares not show his face.
Interesting how beneath the chapel was the Paladin Order Hall. So Tyrion Fordring, the Argent Crusade, Darien Mograine, and the Ebon Blade, the Alliance, the Horde, and all sorts of other allies and factions banded together to bring down the Lich King. But as we learn, there must always be a Lich King, and it would be Bolvar to take up this role. After he had almost been killed by the plague crafted by the cunning Putris and his master Varimathras, and the Dragon's Flame, it would be he to take the helm of domination, and would become the Lich King.
You and these brave heroes have your own destinies to fulfill. This last act of service is mine. You will not be forgotten, brother. I must be forgotten, Tyrion. If the world is to live free from the tyranny of fear, they must never know what was done here today. Tell them only that the Lich King is dead, and that Bolvar Fordragon died with him.
Now for a while, the Lich King's story was incredibly silent, as well as the Death Knights. We got small tidbits of the Death Knights in Cataclysm being generals for the Horde and the Alliance, but for the most part the story went silent. The story was later resolved in Legion, a part of the Order Hall campaign. In Warlords of Draenor, we had a small quest in the Garrison requested by Darien Mograine to secure an artifact from the Shadow Moon dungeon, which Bolvar wanted to use to help Bolvar out. Not sure where that went, but the likelihood it resulted in nothing, or possibly made the situation worse. Hard to say. Another storyline that was introduced was the Spires of Iraq questline, that involved the betrayal from within, Admiral Taylor's garrison, which had a necromancer turn on Taylor and cause multiple deaths. He mentions something regarding his master and then is killed by us. Once more another story that fell flat with no real answers, but it could have been foreshadowing something regarding the Scourge. Interesting how Rathian was also involved in there, and how he is involved in the Chromie scenario. Anyways, come Legion we have the voice of Bolvar in our heads, telling us that the Death Knights of the Ebon Blade are to serve him again, if they are to win the war against the Legion. While this is a different Lich King, I cannot help but wonder why Darien, of all things, did not denounce Bolvar immediately. I might have missed something in the campaign, but just about every Death Knight was perfectly fine serving the Lich King again. Most accepted it, even the Death Lord. We were fine with it. We were fine with serving Bolvar as our king and master, so the Ebon Blade are once more tools for the Lich King. Now I know that Bolvar threatened to turn the Scourge on all of Azeroth if we don't comply, but at the same time I figured we at least have some voice. Also keep in mind that most of the world believes that the Lich King is dead, and it would come as a surprise to most if he returned. Only a few members of the Horde Alliance and the Kirin Tor know of Bolvar's existence, and some are already dead or MIA. Now, not only is the Lich King being far more active, but he is rising in power, and so are his Scourge. We bring back the Four Horsemen, we get him more Death Knights than he had before, more Scourge, new weaponry, and new breed of Scourge worms that are capable of beaming out lightning. So already the Lich King and his Scourge are growing in power, while as for the sake of defeating the Legion, I do think that Bolvar has ulterior motives, and I don't think he is even Bolvar anymore, with how he acts during the campaign and quest chains.
Find a member of the Bronze Flight, the tenders of history. Do not be merciful. A record of their history must lurk somewhere in the sanctum. Spare whom you will, or slay them all. The choice is yours. You are empty inside, just like me. It is here. I can feel it. Your supplies have likely frozen. I sense feral undead buried in the ice. It seems the time has come to test your will. Of course, should you fail to survive, know that I shall claim Agarus for my own. Arthas may have sought revenge on the Citadel, but I have other plans.
I also think after the events on Argus that we will return our weapons to our orders and respected owners. The two blades of the Fallen Prince will be gifted directly to Bolvar to wield personally, but that is more of a speculation than anything. But it would be nice to see Lich King wield something akin to Frostmourne once again. Getting to the topic of this video now, I think the Lich King and the Scourge as a threat is possible. However, this isn't about whether it will be an expansion or not. This is if it will one day be a threat. I personally don't think the Lich King will be the main focus ever again. However, it will be a major part of the story in whatever is involved next. After all, Blizzard loves that cash, and we can clearly learn from both the Legion, which is basically Burning Crusade's successor, and even Hearthstone's own Knights of the Frozen Throne. So, the Undead Scourge being a threat again is not out of the question, but it's not a if Arthas will return sort of deal, like many others speculate. I see it though as more of a sidelines threat, similar to Xavius or the Thunder King. Basically, the Lich King would be one of the main threats of the expansion, but not the threat of the expansion. For example, we would have it that the old gods have returned, and Bolvar and his Scourge, having such a connection to Yogg-Saron, thanks to the Serenite and the location, would be made servants to the Hungry Void, or rather the Void Gods. So the Scourge and Northrend and Bolvar would be a threat once more, but Ajara and N'Zoth would be the main antagonists. Now I don't think they would do a disservice to the Lich King either, as I saw Xavius and Lei Shen done rather well despite not being the main threat of their respective expansions. I think they would build up Bolvar with cutscenes, dialogues, and encounters, and then eventually we would face him in his own new raid. The difference being we would put an end to the line of the Scourge and the Lich King, once and for all, and either Bolvar being freed by death, or by the crown being destroyed. I'd love to see interactions mostly between these four characters with Bolvar. Sylvanas Windrother, who might have actually get a lesson on what could become of her someday if she continues down her specific path. Anduin, who was once great friends with Bolvar and pretty much a father figure, and was never told the truth of him when he died. Magni Bronzebeard, who is one of the people who knew of his fate coming to cope with it, and Anduin's reactions towards it being kept from him. That'd be nice to see. Saurfang, who confronts Old Ghost and his failure to save Bolvar from his fate. As a side note, have an interaction with Death Knight Nazgrim and Saurfang. I would love that. I don't think this would all take place in Icecrown Citadel either. I'd personally change the setting a tad and might have the Scourge elsewhere than Northrend. Now, where is the hard part? Another thing that could possibly happen is the return of Kel'Thuzad, and his own rise to power against Bolvar. It is quite possible we might see the two oppose one another, but that's just an idea I had recently. Could have Kel'Thuzad represent the old Scourge, Arthas and Ner'zhul's, and Bolvar represent the new Scourge. But that's my take on it. I'm sure others would have a more in-depth idea for Bolvar, but this is me more explaining on how or why he might return, or be a threat again. I saw it foreshadowed in different campaigns, quest chains, and even in the Death of Chromie scenario. Now I don't know how Blizzard are going to exactly portray the return of the Scourge, but this is how I see it. I hope you all liked this video, and if you have your own means or ideas on how the Scourge or Bolvar could be portrayed as a future threat, let me know in the comments. I'm Skull Shorties, and I'll see you all in Argus. See ya!